Matthew 6, 19 through 21. For yourselves treasures upon earth, and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. Yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. There is, there will your heart be also.
What was the chapter and verse? Sorry.
Matthew 6, 19 through 21.
Cool.
So I guess the first thing we need to talk about is on earth different from like providing for your family or things away for, because we have commands elsewhere to be a good steward, to lay things up in a storehouse, so you have them for hard times.
So the question basically is, we have this, how do we strike a balance between this command to provide for our families, to be storing our treasures on earth?
Les talked about that on the Pubcast a few weeks ago. The whole deal of like, do you use your free time to generate extra income, or is that optional?
Let's see. So I'm just reading through the commentary notes.
I think to stick with the consistent theme of what we've been reading through this is the physical action contrasted with heart is, and this mentions the heart at the end. So it's been talking about things do, things that are good and righteous to do, like praying, fasting, like that. But it makes the distinction between the thing itself and the attitude of your heart and mind when you do the thing. I think that is what this is speaking to, is or where your trust is.
Right. It seems to me more than just it's more than just physical, money or goods, but it's the concept of our we're characterized not by our pursuit of earthly needs and pleasures, but our highest priority and greatest efforts are to pursue God's glorious reign, His will, and trusting God to provide for their needs. So, I mean, even in our providing for our families and things like that, we know that those are given. We seek those things. Sorry, I thought I heard something. But
Nothing?
even like seeking, have seeking God's glorious reign. We are seeking Him to provide for our needs. So I guess like a subset of storing our treasures in heaven is seeking God for our daily needs. What's different is seeking excessive pleasures and putting our greatest priority on earth, instead of seeking God for all things.
I was trying to find a parable about the guy, I can't remember where it is, about the guy who, gathered up great riches for himself and had multiple barns, and this is where he kept all his stuff, and pretty much said, like, I'm set for good, like, everything's great. I don't have to worry about anything. And the next day he dies. So like all the things that he built up on the earth that didn't do him any good matters. And I wish I could remember where that was so I'd read it. But that's basically the point, is the physical things can come and go. Things will last forever. So if you're putting your trust in physical things, they can be destroyed. Rust corrupts. Thieves break in, steal. Where your trust is. Commentary. He makes a point. He says, "Not count these things the best things, nor the most valuable in themselves, visible to us. We must not call them glory, did, but see and own that they have no glory in comparison with the glory that excelleth." So it's he's saying that it's not having being a good steward of your treasure on earth is a bad thing in and of itself. People misquote that verse where it says the love of money is the root of all evil. They say money is the root of all evil. That's not true, because money is, just a thing indifferent in itself. It has no moral value either way. It's the use of it that is the use of it can be abused.
Yeah. And even providing for our needs is a necessity of something that we have to do. It's not as if it's something that's where our value lies.
I guess I just see it's like a matter of priority. It's not saying don't have savings or don't don't provide any things in heaven or on earth, but it's saying the things that you place the most value on, that's where your heart's going to be. So if you just see monetary, if you just see money and physical things as what they are and don't place high importance on it, but yet your heart and the things that you are focused upon and the things that matter the most to you are the things of God, then I think then you're applying this correctly. Right? So are we more focused on our eternal life, or are we more focused on this physical life right here? And it's also it's a smaller picture of the bigger picture of instant gratification versus temperance, and then seeing glory in the afterlife rather than the rewards here.
And Matthew Henry makes the point that it says it's not talking about taking care of your family or leaving something for your posterity, because it says lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. So it's about the individual. You lay your treasure, not what you're doing for others. Where is your individual treasure being placed? And Matthew Henry makes the point too. He says, no, worldly riches have in themselves a principle of corruption and decay, themselves, and make themselves wings. It's just the natural things that have just the natural state of clothes. If they sit around eaten by moths, or they just wear to brittleness, gold, silver, things like that, it rusts, decays, it loses its splendor. So I think what he's getting at there is God has made those things in such a way that they have a natural decay to them. So when we observe them, we can just see by observing them that they're temporary, and that's not where our ultimate hope should lie, is in things temporary, but things that last eternally.
Yeah. I was kind of reading through Calvin's commentary, and he's just saying how it is there's no joy in having your treasures in earth, for it's life is as a mist. It's there and then it's gone in comparison to eternal life, and to store your treasures on earth, it's either it's uncertain whether you will have that, whether it will stay, whether it be lost, or and it also is a short duration. So there's no solid, foundational, I guess, assurance or hope in that.
I found that parable. It's in Luke 12, starting in verse 16. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he do, I will pull down my barns and build greater, all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. And thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Things be which thou hast provided, hath up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward God. So the final verse is, there will your heart be also. Kind of the key to Christian, because he compares on earth and lay up treasures in heaven, and speaks to the heart. And my pastor, he didn't preach on this text, but he used this verse and applied it somewhere else. But he said that what's interesting is the treasure goes first, not the heart. So it's not necessarily saying, if your heart is to one thing, that's where your treasure will be. Even though that's true, I don't think that's the structure of the verse. It's saying where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So the heart kind of follows the treasure. And he was actually using it in the context of tithing, putting money into God's house, and was saying that, I would say for probably most people, it's difficult to tithe. Like, it's difficult to let go of that money off the top of your increase. And sometimes your heart isn't always there. And people would say, all the verses about the cheerful giver, if you're not cheerful about giving, then you shouldn't give. But he's saying that's not correct. You should, because we're commanded to. And if you're faith, trust God to where your money's going, your heart will follow. So, in the context of this, while it may not always be our first heart's desire to lay up treasure in heaven, the command would be go ahead and do it anyways, to try to pursue that, and your heart will follow behind. And I think that's true.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, what you were saying made sense to me. I mean, it applies. See how the treasure comes first, right? And then the heart follows.
Yeah, but I think we shouldn't do it out of just no faith at all. Just be like,
Oh,
I'm
no, you're
commanded
right.
to do this. I don't feel like doing it, but I'm commanded to, so I'm just going to do it. I think there has to be, a little bit of faith and trust there. Is saying basically you have to be at a point where you say, okay, God, my heart isn't where my treasure is, but I'm going to put my treasure where it should go in trust that the Spirit will guide my heart to follow.
Well,
That's more along that line than just doing it out of sheer obedience and no faith and trust at all, just doing it because it's commanded.
I already touched on this. Daughter in bed, but in the Reformation, like in the notes, as about like you think when you read the verse on the surface, caring about physical goods or money, right? But essentially, like, the heaven and earth are contrasted as two spheres of existence. Heaven is eternal and incorruptible, while earth is transitory and corruptible. Self treasures in heaven, living for the eternal kingdom by obeying Christ's commands and by having faith in God's promise of reward. Hebrews 11:6. So it's a life of obedience and keeping our eye on Christ and faith in his promises rather than thinking about all the things of this physical mundane life, right? Makes sense. It's just kind of a reminder, like it's a command essentially to remember to do what he commanded and be obedient and have faith. Which goes off of what you were saying, Christian, Goes back to doing things with faith, like having that faith. Not doing it because we feel like we have to.
I think a large part of it has to do with what we're placing our faith in as well. I mean, in the verse, the rich man or the farmer, whatever he is, he's stockpiling all that stuff. And what does he say to himself? He says, I have all this stuff, therefore I'm going to be able to relax and live good and prosper in the years to come because of the store that he's built up. And what's God's response to that? Well, tonight your soul's going to be taken from you, basically, or your soul's going to be required of you. Our trust in future prosperity or future anything, it should be in God, not in what we've built up in this world. And so it's also about where we place our faith. Because the fact of the matter is, we all sit back and, this is what it goes back to James. What does James say? Say not, I'm going to go into this town and sell tomorrow, but instead say, if it's God's will, I'll go into this town and sell tomorrow. The only reason we have it tomorrow is by God's grace and God's will. And we tend to love to try to store up and stock up and be ready for tomorrow. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know what tomorrow is going to hold for us. Only God does. So we put our trust in him. He's the one who knows what tomorrow is, and he knows what we need. And so I think a lot of it has to do with where we place our faith.
Yeah.
I think it can apply to more than money itself also. Matthew Henry makes that point. This comes at the end of a lot of other teachings about religious service, giving alms, praying, fasting. And he says that, the hypocrites do those things to be seen before men or to receive their reward from men. So they're laying up their treasure through doing those religious devotions. They're laying up treasure on earth by seeking men's approval rather than God's. And it applies, the other way. It's basically a sum of, what he's been saying is do that service like you are supposed to do, and then he expects us to do, but do it unto God and not unto men, and you'll build treasure before God instead of before men.
Dude, this is like the quietest study ever.
Oh.
It's kind of a short section. I don't know if there's really a whole lot more to say about it.
Yeah, it is a short section, and it's one that's fairly clear.
Yeah, this isn't the most shadowy text.
Yeah.
And it's not like we got like a whole group of heads up in here.
Yeah.
I suppose it does kind of relate to the whole text. Does fit in with the sermon from this morning, which was about Moses killing the Egyptian. And my pastor interpreted it as, I guess, an attempt to provide for the salvation of the two Israelites who were being beaten by this Egyptian, which ultimately was not received and did not work out for him, since he was forced to leave Egypt. And during the 40 years that Moses had to wait between that event and the actual deliverance of the people, I'm certain he worried quite a bit about it. He would have had to have, assuming that he didn't just forget everything and not care about it at all, he would have had to have a lot of patience and a lot of faith that God would fulfill his promises to bring his people out from Egypt. That's, I suppose, something bigger than what am I going to eat tonight?
Yeah, no, I think we'll touch on that again in a couple weeks when we start hitting verse 25. We can go ahead and wrap it up if that's it for tonight. A little shorter.
Yeah. Seriously though, like when I first joined squad, told that like this was mandatory.
What is that? When we were doing Hebrews, everybody would make it, like pretty much. There was like maybe 1 or 2 weeks where a couple people get, but for the most part,
I remember, and you said when I first got signed up, when Ryan signed me up, you said he better make it, and he doesn't. For myself, and like it's like since I've joined, like it's like less and less, like more and more excuses.
yeah, I don't know.
Everybody want like Ron.
We were even doing it on a
Ron,
weeknight.
like Rob said, everybody wants to say squat up, but no one wants to squat up.
Yeah, where's he at, by the way?
I don't know. I hadn't really seen him talk much in the
I haven't
group.
seen him all day.
The hardest part for me is with it being on Sunday evenings, man, because like Sunday evenings are my family time, and so I have to wait till I put my girls to bed. And like Josh knows what I mean. We're hours behind you guys. So
No,
it's
you
like,
ain't. We're
I'm
on
an
the
hour
same.
behind you guys. Or you're the same as me?
No, you ain't. Yeah.
I'm an hour behind Christian, and so
Yeah. It's 8:45 right now.
yeah. See, my girls go to bed at 8 and 8:30, so it's hard.
Yeah, I usually miss putting my kids to bed on Sunday nights.
Yeah, see that, and I only get to put them to bed on Saturdays and Sundays because I work all night every night.
Oh,
So that's not something I pass up too readily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this off.